The Colosseum, or Flavian Amphitheatre, is one of the most grandiose architectural wonders left to us by Roman civilization. It is much more than just an ancient structure. It is the symbol of imperial Rome, its greatness, and Roman popular culture. This amphitheatre is not only a colossal construction, but it was also the center of Roman public life for centuries, where games and events were held to keep the people entertained. Among these events, gladiator combats were the most famous and most anticipated. But beyond the classic image of gladiators fighting in the arena, have you ever wondered what it was like to experience the spectacle as a spectator at the Colosseum? What was it like to take part in those days filled with spectacle and blood, surrounded by thousands of people, cheering and shouting as men fought to the death? In this video, we'll dive into the world of the Roman Colosseum spectators, exploring what it was like to attend the games, how they were organized, how the audience felt, and the role the Colosseum played in everyday Roman life. Entering the Colosseum to attend the games, the first thing a Roman citizen needed was a tessera, or ticket. Although entry was free, tickets were distributed in a highly regulated way based on social class. These tesserae were handed out in advance, and not everyone had access to the same section of the Colosseum. This reflected Rome's strict social hierarchy. Nobles, senators, and the upper classes had the best seats, close to the arena, while the lower classes, like plebeians and slaves, were seated in the higher tiers with a more distant view of the action. On the day of the event, the streets around the Colosseum were filled with people. Crowds marched toward the amphitheatre, all eager to witness the day's spectacle. In addition to spectators, the streets were full of vendors selling food, drinks, charms, and souvenirs, creating a lively, bustling atmosphere. Once the crowds reached the gates, the organizational process began. Despite the massive number of attendees, the Colosseum's 80 numbered entrances allowed people to reach their seats quickly and efficiently. This meticulously planned system was a testament to Rome's capacity for managing large events and maintaining order amid chaos. Sitting in the stands once inside, the public moved to their assigned seats. The Colosseum was divided into multiple sections, and seating placement was strictly determined by each spectator's social rank. Senators, Rome's top political figures, sat in the podium, a luxurious area close to the arena, offering a privileged view of the spectacle. These marble seats were ornately decorated and clearly reflected the power and influence of those who occupied them. Above the podium was the Maenianum Primum, the first elevated tier reserved for Roman knights, equites, men of lower rank than senators but still part of the elite. Though slightly farther from the arena, their view remained excellent. Higher up was the Maenianum Secundum, where the plebeians, the working class of Rome, were seated. Even within this tier, a distinction existed. The lower part was reserved for higher status plebeians, while the upper area was for the poorest citizens. At the very top of the Colosseum, in the Maenianum Summum, were the seats for women, foreigners, and slaves. From here, the view was more distant, and the crowd was removed from the heart of the action. In this way, the Colosseum was not just a place of entertainment, but a literal representation of Rome's social hierarchy, where each spectator's seat reflected their position within society. The view of the arena. The Colosseum was engineered with incredible precision to ensure that all spectators, regardless of where they sat, had a clear view of the arena. Its elliptical shape, measuring 180 meters long by 156 meters wide, was ideal for optimal visibility from every angle. The slope of the seating tiers was carefully calculated, so even those in the highest rows could see without obstruction. This design helped maintain a sense of inclusion and excitement for all attendees, making every spectator feel part of the action. The floor of the arena was covered with a layer of sand that absorbed the blood spilled during combat, something that contributed to the brutal and symbolic atmosphere of the games. The arena was also home to many technological innovations. The Colosseum featured a complex system of ramps and lifts that allowed gladiators and animals to enter and exit with ease. In addition, mechanisms allowed the arena to be transformed into different scenes, a jungle, a battlefield, or even a sea, when the famous naval battles were reenacted. These spectacles amazed audiences as the arena seemingly came to life in extraordinary ways. The Emperor's arrival. The start of the games was always marked by great pomp and circumstance. When the Emperor arrived at the Colosseum, trumpets would sound, and the entire crowd would stand to receive the leader of Rome. The Emperor's arrival, surrounded by his entourage of senators, generals, and members of the Roman elite, was a spectacle in itself. His presence elevated the morale of the crowd, who cheered and applauded as he made his way to his seat of honor, located closest to the arena. The Emperor, as the symbol of Rome's absolute power, was not only the central figure of the ceremony, but his presence also marked the beginning of the games. In his records, the historian Suetonius describes how Emperor Titus's arrival at the Colosseum was met with a deafening ovation. This moment of exaltation was not only a greeting to the imperial figure, but also an acknowledgement of the power of Rome and the grandeur of the spectacle about to begin. The gladiators' entrance. The entrance of the gladiators was one of the most exciting moments of the event. These men, who faced each other in mortal combat, made a procession known as pompa, parading before the public, accompanied by exotic animals and war prisoners. The entrance was choreographed and carefully planned, and the gladiators emerged from the tunnels and underground passages of the Colosseum, advancing toward the center of the arena. Before the fight, the gladiators stopped in the center of the arena, turned toward the emperor, and raised their weapons in salute, uttering the famous phrase "Avaciso morituri te salutant." This salute was an acknowledgement of the fate that awaited them. Many would not survive the fight. After this ceremony, the gladiators scattered and took their positions, and at that moment, the tension in the air was palpable. The fights in the arena began with a mix of tension and strategy. The gladiators faced each other meticulously, assessing their opponents and waiting for the perfect moment to attack. The fighters were trained in various combat styles, and each duel was a true deadly dance. It wasn't just strength that determined the outcome, but also cunning and tactical skill. During the combats, the spectators watched every move closely, applauding and cheering for the gladiators, who stood out for their bravery. The crowd became another character in the fight, influencing the emperor's decision on whether the defeated gladiator should be pardoned or executed. The emperor's gesture, a simple raise of the finger, decided the fate of the fighters. Intermission. During the breaks between the fights, the Romans enjoyed other types of spectacles such as venation, wild animal hunts in the arena. Lions, tigers, elephants, and other exotic creatures were brought from the farthest corners of the empire to face off against hunters, known as venatores. These spectacles, which showcased the skill and bravery of the hunters, were a major attraction for the audience. Additionally, during some intermissions, women and dwarfs fought in the arena, providing a contrast to the gladiator combats. The cleanup. When the games ended, the arena was a field of destruction. The cleaning process began immediately, with slaves and workers tasked with removing the corpses and cleaning the sand from the bloodshed. The surviving gladiators were cheered by the public and made their way to the emperor to receive their rewards. Prizes ranged from laurel crowns to land, money, or freedom for the slave gladiators. The exit from the Colosseum. At the end of the event, the spectators began to leave the Colosseum. The exit was orderly, with 80 gates facilitating a quick evacuation. Trade around the Colosseum flourished, with vendors offering food and drinks. Meanwhile, many Romans headed to the taverns and public baths to discuss the day's events, reliving the best fights and the most dramatic moments. If you were captivated by this story of daily life in Rome, subscribe and share this video. Would you have liked to go to the Colosseum? What event would you have wanted to see? Leave us your comment and join us in the next historical exploration.